Developing tonight, a fierce debate growing over media fairness after a reporter goes after Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker with what the 2016 hopeful called a gotcha question. It started on Saturday when a Washington Post reporter asked Walker about President Obama's faith, and the governor responded, quote, "You've asked me to make statements about people that I haven't had a conversation with about that. How could I say if I know either of you are a Christian?" Walker went on to suggest questions like that are one reason Americans are skeptical of some media outlets, but that didn't stop them from piling on. Chicago Tribune, quote, "Scott Walker inexplicably evades basic questions." NBC News then suggesting, quote, "As controversy swirls, Scott Walker plays with fire." And Salon going so far as to accuse Walker of, quote, "media cowardice." Mark Hanna, not a media coward, is a Democratic campaign veteran who worked both on the Kerry and Obama presidential campaigns. Mark, good to see you, but I got to ask you, were either of your candidates ever asked about the faith of other candidates?
I don't remember a particular time they were, but I wouldn't put it past the media to ask these questions. You and I both know that the media loves asking these difficult questions. They sort of
But what does that have to do
scandal
with his qualifications for being president or for running for president? I don't understand how that question could get you to any information along those lines.
Right. The reason it's relevant is because those journalists happen to think that that's what their readers or viewers or audiences care about. And it's only up to the journalists to decide that. We've had an adversarial press in this country going back to our country's founding. So,
do you think they've been adversarial with President Obama?
Absolutely. When President Obama was on the campaign trail, he got asked very tough questions. He sat down with Fox's own Bill O'Reilly and got peppered with very difficult questions. Scott Walker is about to join the big leagues. If he wants to join the national stage and put himself forward for a credible presidential candidate, he has to answer these questions. Let's remember, this is sort of the third question in a pattern of behavior we've seen. He refused to answer whether or not he thinks climate change is actual and real and is happening, and he refused to say whether he believes the president loves America. These aren't difficult questions. These are just reporters asking him yes or no questions about what he believes.
But
if he
come on, Mark, why are they asking those questions? They want to make him look like he's a crazy flat earther, President Obama hating, crazy nut job. I mean, it suggests to me that they think he's a credible threat for 2016 if they're going to ask him these questions that don't really get to any real policies.
Sure, they're gonna vet him and they're gonna ask these tough questions because they do see him as a credible, not threat, but a credible candidate for 2016, or at least until he sort of was caught flat-footed on these questions. Is
Hillary Clinton going to get asked these questions? Do you think someone's going to ask her what she thinks Elizabeth Warren's background and heritage and religion is?
She's going to be asked questions that try to distance her or put a wedge between her and the left wing of the party. The reason this is important is because 2 years ago a poll showed that 1/3 of Republicans actually thought the president was Muslim. Now, we all know the president is Christian, yes, and so, Shannon, if this is true, these are, of course, the 1/3 of the Republican Party that's hanging out in dark corners of the internet.
You're going to have to send us some information on that poll, because that doesn't square with our polling.
It's a Pew poll from 2010. It's actually 4 years old. 4 years old.
All right, we will dig it up. But, Mark, we thank you for joining us, and we want to do a little counterpoint on this. So we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Shannon. Hopefully Scott will come forward with some of his honest answers for these.
Okay. Well, joining us now, Laura Ingraham, host of The Laura Ingraham Show. I know you're chomping at the bit out there, Laura. Do you think Hillary Clinton's going to get asked if she thinks that Elizabeth Warren is Episcopalian or whatever?
Well, let me think. That's a very hard question. No, of course she's not going to. I mean, we didn't even get questions asked of Hillary about issues like Benghazi or why the world is falling apart after she left as Secretary of State. What did she leave behind in her wake? What's going on here specifically? Let's talk about Scott Walker. Scott Walker, of course, is considered a threat. He's a threat to Jeb Bush, though, right? And right now, the dominant media they do a little bit of criticism of Jeb Bush, Shannon, but for the most part, they're quick hits. They're not kill shots. They're trying to go after Walker and before that Chris Christie with kind of the dead man blows here. They're not messing around. And look, both of them have to understand what's happening. Both Christie and Walker have to realize that when they're asked ridiculously stupid questions like the one Mark thinks it's a real litmus test. They should say, well, look, I know what you're doing. I know what the media always does. You want to make conservatives out to look like they're anti-science or they're troglodytes. It's obvious. It's a pattern, and it's a disservice to the press and the American people. So let's talk about some real issues. What's really on the mind of the American people, whether Obama's a Muslim or the fact that they haven't gotten a wage hike in the 13 years. I'd put it right back in the media's face. They should know that. Both of them have to be better at that. But I think what's happening is we're seeing a major media ultimate push for the establishment choice. They did it with Romney. They did it with McCain in 2008. And what happens is the establishment choice goes up against the establishment Democrat. And usually, not always, but usually the establishment Republican loses. So Christie and Walker, for right now, are the big threats. So you're going to still see the hits against both of them, Shannon, coming fast and furious. Both of them have to be ready for them.
Yeah, and some folks pointed out a response that came from Marco Rubio, who looks like he's gearing up to run in 2016, or at least strongly hinting at that. When he was asked about something, he's like, listen, Democrats don't have to answer for every nutty thing that good old Joe Biden, the vice president, says. I mean, so it sounded like he was prepped and ready for that. Do you think it's a matter of experience or just better prep for folks like Scott Walker that would get him in better shape?
Wisconsin is different from the national press. I mean, Scott Walker was under the microscope. He get hit a lot, but mostly by local press, some by national during the union, obviously, fracas. But the white-hot spotlight of the national media in a presidential election is brutal. I think someone like a Christie is kind of used to it, right? I mean, he's been under the spotlight in the New York media, the New York Daily News, obviously the Post, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all the local markets, media markets. He's kind of used to it, so he knows how to deal with it a little bit better. But even he got the hit with the vaccine the other day, and you know, I mean, he had to deal with that news cycle for a while. So this is what's going to happen. Hillary Clinton is enjoying this, I'm sure, but she will never get the treatment that any Republican in the primary process or in the general will get from the media.
Well, I'm sure that she is gearing up to answer questions on evolution and the like, and she's prepping behind closed doors right now. Laura Ingraham, thank you so much.
Great to see you, Shannon.